Okay, so hi. So it's been a really long time since I did a video blog. I like to say that I'll do them more, but to be honest, half the time I don't like my hair, and so I don't feel like doing it. That's a really silly reason why you should not video blog, but fuck it, it's the real reason. I cut my hair off last year, and I'm slowly in the process of growing it back out with now all quote unquote natural growth. Though I hate the term natural. Um, so it is unprocessed growth. There are no chemicals in my hair beyond the chemicals that I put in my hair to the natural chemicals that I put in my hair to to make it have this lovely texture. All right. Well, that's not really the thing that I want to talk about today. That's something we could talk about some other time. Hierarchy of hair in Black women's lives. But anyway, and particularly the intellectual Black woman who's not allowed to process her hair, apparently. Um, wow, that secretly pisses me off more than I think I let on half the time. Anyway, today I actually want to talk about my frustrations at the kind of disappearance of blackness in my academic pursuit. Um, to be honest, I was an Afro American Studies major in undergrad. Go FAM. And so I'm pretty used to being to having race and particularly blackness with a capital B um, as the central paradigm or focal lens through which I do my work. And I actually like personally have a political project of maintaining that. And so I knew in shifting my field to going into gender studies, though I go to a women's studies, I am getting my PhD in women's studies. I think my work is more broadly about the performance and deconstruction of uh, gender more broadly, and trying to think through what the term woman means when it's a black body that is sexed and gendered in that way. Um, and so, like, I knew the focal point would change, and to a point, I really invited it because I was very exhausted by the overwhelming phallocentrism, patriarchal, masculinist aspects of Afro American studies, that it's always about the men. It's either about the plight of the men, about how the women are only responding to the men. Somehow it just always seems to be about dudes in Afro Am. And so I really wanted to do a program where it wasn't going to be about dudes. But as the that old, like, I think it's Michelle Wallace book tells us, all women are white and all blacks are men. So in shifting my paradigm to like a, at least field wise, to a gender studies program, blackness has really gone out of focus in terms of my coursework. And I don't think this would be as frustrating for me if I didn't think that in the move of academia to do post-colonial theory and transnational theory, somehow U.S. Black experience seems to be lost, even though we were a part of a colonial project and even though we are a diasporic transnational peoples, um, somehow that experience, and particularly uh, black feminine bodied peoples, or black feminine people, because you don't have to have a feminine body in order to be a subject of my inquiry, or what constitutes a feminine body is actually a part of my inquiry. So I'm sorry, these are like broad theoretical questions that I ask in my work, or I want to ask in my work, and not necessarily some shit that you care about in this blog post. Um, so anyway, the point being that in doing this work, I am really frustrated by the ways in which post-coloniality and transnationalism is linked solely to the global South and um, the East. I don't like the other term, but like what Edward Said would call the Orient, and the other as an othering project of the Imperial West. But my frustration with that is the collapsing of the West into this homogenous field, which doesn't allow for the, like, doesn't acknowledge and doesn't really investigate in sustained ways the like intra imperialist projects that the West has, particularly in a U.S. context. Like, um, where do you see Puerto Rico, for example, if you're talking about the like post-colonial project, or Guam, or any of the other protectorates of the United States? How do Black communities in the U.S. figure into a post-colonial theory or into a transnational theory? And it's not that I don't think that it's possible. I just think that it's not being done, or at the very least, I'm not being um, introduced to those works in the department that I'm currently in. And so, part of my personal project right now is trying to take this anger and use it as a fuel to like investigate more deeply how has the quote unquote post-colonial and transnational turn affected Afro American studies, and particularly the study of Blacks within the United States. Because I think that like talking about like Afro Caribbean studies, um, Africana studies is this epistemological issue isn't as um, dangerous or shifty, because I think the Caribbean is in some ways, though not always, um, a part of that othering project. It's seen as part of the global South for the most part, which is also why Puerto Rico is interesting, because it is in what we consider the Caribbean area, but it is theoretically a part of the global North, but it really isn't a part of the global North. It's clearly part of the global South in the sense that it's a colonial project, a neo-colonialist project of the United States. Anyway, free Puerto Rico. But anyway, yeah. So, but then how do these, like, not just thinking of communities of color in the U.S. as part of diasporas um, that have a othered homeland, but for those of us whose homeland is the United States in a way, I mean, like Black people in the U.S., we are African, but at the same time, there isn't a there isn't necessarily a generative script that we can easily trace back to a particular African country or area or specific peoples in Africa, and therefore, where does that that discussion of diaspora and that discussion of movement and beingness and what the post-colonial subaltern transnational body, what does that mean given these bodies and the configurations of East and West and South and North um, in in the current in the ways that it's currently configured.